Hello, Paul. Hello, 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 hello. I sound like a right old broadcaster, don't I? And I certainly like my broads, don't you?
Are you ready?
You ready? I'm ready.
Oh my goodness!
But in today's video, folks, I'll be going over this rather stupid article from Collider because quite clearly they are desperate for hits and not the tits. Exactly what am I talking about? Well, stick around, folks, and you'll find out with me as I read this sorrowful article from an Indian man who thinks that the Peter Jackson Fran Walsh Lord of the Rings from yesteryear are very bad to watch today. I kid you not.
YouTube's newest hero is here to save the day. His name, Kung Fu Hot Dog.
Ladies and gentlemen, meet Safwan Azim.
Who?
That's right, it sucks.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And what's great about this silly biography here on Collider, it's almost as if Safwan wrote it himself in the third person narrative. Author details. It all started with Safwan's love for writing back when he was 8 years old and read a feature on Collider. It's true. I'm betting that Stephen Frosty Weintraub endorsed this young man because we know that Steve is into young men if he saw the Stranger Things debacle from last year.
I really want to say thank you for everything on the show, and seriously, episode 7 is just, fantastic.
Thank you.
Noah Schnapp, I want you inside my bumhole right now.
I would love for it to be after I'm dead.
The young gamer, also gay by chance, was too into his gaming nighters with the worlds of Dota and Counter-Strike, was too naive to make sense of the fact that his true calling was writing back then. Fast forward to an impressionable 18-year-old, because that's the way Frosty Weintraub likes them, he now actively contributes to Collider, with his words flowing as smoothly as his juices are when he's locked in a room with Frosty Weintraub. Industry experience. As a child, and again, why are we going back to when he was a child? He loved watching anything and everything on screen. Does that mean he was also peeking at his next door neighbors as well? Well, you tell me in the comments below, folks. This boundless curiosity combined with his extensive gaming background led him to start writing stories about, well, anything and everything. Today, he, they, them channels his multiple passions into crafting cool and trending food, gaming, entertainment, film, TV news stories for Collider and other esteemed platforms, including Let's Eat Cake, TV Over Mind, and Darcy Magazine. Already I am frothing at the navel, but let's get on with the main article today, folks, because I know that's what you came here for. And keep your juices intact, please. Cue the sad music, Mr. Editor. Well, that's me because nobody else makes my videos, you damn idiots. Rewatching the LOTR trilogy today can feel very different from watching it when it was first released. Back then, the scale was overwhelming, the well felt endless, and the commitment felt worth it because nothing else looked or moved like it, except for when he goes to the toilet for a number 2. Years later, the films still command respect, but that sense of awe does not always come as easily, unlike Safwan when he's alone with Stephen Frosty Weintraub. Time has changed how we watch movies, how we pace stories, and what we expect from fantasy epics. Well, if I didn't read that biography from before, folks, I wouldn't guess that this guy, this pissant, wasn't a budding writer. The influence of J.R.R. Tolkien, the white man, trilogy is undeniable. Instead, these reasons look at why modern viewers sometimes struggle to fully sink into the experience the way audiences once did. Is this man out of his mind? I'm going out of mine already. From shifting attention spans to evolving storytelling expectations, several small factors quietly add up. The films remain monumental achievements, but watching them now often requires more patience, context, adjustment, and how it used to be. Here are a few reasons why. It couldn't have been 13 reasons why like the Netflix show. Sitting down to watch The Lord of the Rings requires making up your mind beforehand. Each film runs close to 3 hours, and for many viewers, the extended editions have become the default choice. Of course they have. That turns the trilogy into a commitment of an entire day, which actually is not true, because when I do this, I actually watch it over the span of 3 days because it's 3 films, you silly Billy, or several long evenings with very little room for casual viewing. The story is dense, the world is detailed, and skipping around is not really an option if you want to stay oriented. Oh my god. Now let's get into reason 2. Some of the early digital effects look dated on modern screens. At the time of the release, the visual effects in the Lord of the Rings trilogy were groundbreaking. Yeah, these films all won Oscars each respective year. Do you remember that, Saf One, or are you just ignoring that fact? The films blended practical sets, miniatures, and early CGI in ways that had rarely been attempted on such a grand scale. However, technology moves quickly, as does his bowel movements, and what looked seamless now shows its limitations, especially on modern high definition and 4K displays. And that's not true, because on a 4K TV you got various settings to make the picture come alive. So what is this fool talking about? Certain battle scenes and crowd extensions, digital creatures stand out more than intended. The contrast between practical and CGI can feel uneven, and it might pull attention away from the story in moments that are actually meant to feel immersive. I mean, this guy forgets that the LOTR trilogy, I just talk about the trilogy, not the Hobbit, is a fantasy epic. So you're supposed to see things within your eyes, through your eyes, as intended by the director, Peter Jackson, and Fran Walsh's ever-loving assistant. The serious, old-fashioned tone can feel distant to today's audiences, because John Carter from Mars was the same thing, wasn't it? People didn't like the old-fashioned storytelling. When that film was released, the story was over 100 years old, but I still liked it. So what is this guy talking about? What is wrong with old-fashioned sentimentality in a movie like this? This makes no sense whatsoever. The films speak in formal language, not Urdu or Indian or Sanskrit, rely on mythic stakes, and treat good and evil as clearly defined forces. What's wrong with that? That's the same template for Marvel and DC movies. And this man is a budding writer, more like a bud ding ding. That approach made sense for adapting Tolkien's work and gave the trilogy its weight and sincerity. Still, that same seriousness can feel heavy for viewers. Gen Z mainly, which this guy's part of.
Because what did I hear the other day? Someone was like, in school we refer to boys as alphas.
Oh,
like,
we need to delete that almost immediately.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Who are used to more casual, self-aware blockbusters with diversity. By the way, I'm on bullet point 3. I wonder if diversity pops up in this article. I can't wait. I hope he doesn't let me down. Large parts of the story focus on traveling, which slows the pace. So what does this guy want? A fast travel mechanic from a video game so they're suddenly at the next point of their epic journey? This man's an absolute fool. A major portion of the trilogy is built around bowel movements, as is the case with this article from Safwan Azim. Characters walk across mountains, forests, plains, trains, and automobiles, and ruins, which often occurs in long stretches where little changes beyond location. This structure reflects the journey at the heart of its story, and it reinforces the physical cost of the quest. However, when revisiting the films today, that emphasis on travel can test the patience. Oh my god, this guy is absolutely ridiculous. The formal old-style dialogue can feel hard to connect with emotionally, because again, it's not been translated into Urdu or Hindi. Much of the LOTR trilogies rely on elevated, almost ceremonial dialogue. Characters speak with purpose, restraint, and a sense of density hanging over every line. This fits Tolkien's world, where language carries history and moral weight. At the same time, that formality can create distance for modern viewers who are more used to conversational speech and emotional directness, and yet he doesn't actually bother to quote any examples to back up his ludicrous point right here. The clear good versus evil approach leaves little room for moral complexity. The trilogy presents a world where moral lines are sharply drawn, evil is external, visible, and largely unchanging, while good is defined by loyalty, restraint, there's our word again, and sacrifice. This clarity gives the story focus and makes its stakes easy to understand. I like my steaks medium rare. It also reinforces the mythic structure that defines the films. However, the same structure can feel limiting to audiences who expect moral ambiguity. But the fact there's good versus evil, what's the moral ambiguity, dude? It's an old-fashioned story for an old-fashioned audience who still like old-fashioned tales like I do. This guy is talking absolute bollocks. The lack of grey areas narrows the range of interpretation. For repeat viewings, this simplicity can reduce tension since outcomes and moral positions, namely 69, are already settled long before the story ends. Years of cultural overexposure have reduced the impact of big moments. Over the past 2 decades, the LOTR trilogy has become part of shared pop culture in a way few films ever do. Iconic lines, musical cues, and emotional climaxes with Frosty Weintraub have been replayed endlessly through memes, clips, references, and parodies. He's talking about the Rings of Power from Amazon. As a result, scenes that once felt overwhelming now arrive with familiarity instead of shock. Even first-time viewers often feel like they have already seen the headlights, namely the ones, Azim, when you're crossing the road at night in your local neighborhood. Because so many moments are culturally pre-digested, the films struggle to recreate the sense of awe they once delivered. But then again, if you watch the original Star Wars trilogy of movies, they still stand the test of time. I would say the dialogue in those are even more simplistic than the LOTR films. But what does this fool even know? He's a gun. This does not make the scenes weaker on a technical level, but it does change how they land emotionally. And in the case of Azim, I wish you'd land on his fucking head. Knowing every story beat removes the sense of discovery and surprise. This guy, I think, is harking too much. He's trying too much to make sense out of the LOTR. He probably had a bad day and now he's just venting his frustrations in this article with the full approval of Frosty Weintraub, his live-in lover at Collider. The trilogy's narrative has been absorbed so completely into popular consciousness, or in this case in Azim, unconsciousness, that its structure feels almost fixed in memory. The journey, the betrayals, the sacrifices, and the final resolution are widely known. For many viewers, especially those revisiting the films, the experience becomes less about curiosity, kills the cat, and more about endurance. You remember what is coming, how long it takes, and where each emotional peak sits. Again, this guy talks about the fact, and he disappointed me here, I thought he was going to mention in the cultural impact of the LOTR trilogy, like where are the dark folks? Where's the dark matter? Does it matter? But if he sat down to watch the diaries that go on for about 2.5 hours plus on each DVD Blu-ray, then is he going to complain about those two? He probably will. He's probably never sat down and watched them, to be honest. So the problem with this trilogy is that you can't understand them while you're watching Reels or TikToks, or that these characters deliver full sentences. The irony, it doesn't sound like a film issue at all. Of course, the problem is the movies are unnecessarily long, especially for such a straightforward, simple, and quite frankly boring storyline. All that build up for a poor ending. Oh boy, you know, each their own, folks. That's all I gotta say. The problem is new generation, not the movie. It's not a movie problem, it's an audience problem, or in this case, an Azim problem, which might be a good headline for my video. Well, I don't know about you folks, but I had a thoroughly good laugh reading that article from Mr. Safan Azim, because he sounds like an absolute head case, playing his guitar, strumming his thing slowly, and while he's listening to his guitar, silently weeping in the corner, he's probably wondering where his next gig is coming from. I guess from Stephen Frosty Weintraub's thumb up his bum. And on that one, ladies and gentlemen, I'm such a saucy, fruity little boy today. If you liked what you saw in this video, give it a like, smash that subscribe button, and I will catch you catching me for the return of, and thank you for the 10 or more subscribers who found me over the weekend. You're the best. Catch you on the next rare video.
Like and subscribe for more Kung Fu Hot Dog.